borderlands between England and Wales are some of the most breathtaking and picturesque regions in the United Kingdom. Stretching from the rugged peaks of the Welsh mountains to the gentle valleys and rolling hills of the English countryside, the Welsh Marches are steeped in history and legend, scattered with castles, and said to be home to myriad supernatural manifestations. Among the many captivating tales of the region, few are as intriguing, perhaps even infamous, as those that unfold in Berkeley, a town near the Welsh border in Gloucestershire, and its centrepiece, the magnificent castle. Behind the elegance and grand facade, however, is a hidden history where whispers of witchcraft, a sinister toad, and the chilling echoes of a brutal regicide beckon the curious soul. Join me as I delve into Berkeley's dark past. Originally a Motte and Bailey castle constructed around 1067, Berkeley Castle was rebuilt by Robert FitzHarding in 1153, and it's the oldest building in the country to be inhabited by the same family who built it. With an estate of 6,000 acres and a sturdy keep standing some 60 feet tall, it's an imposing place. Deceptively pretty in the sunshine, the arrow slits, trip steps, murder holes, and thick stone walls are sobering reminders of its defensive purpose. And just inside the keep, incongruous against the elegant stained glass, portraits of the great and good and treasures like Sir Francis Drake's chest, there's a small room, visible through an iron grille, with a wooden sign above it that reads, "The cell in which, according to tradition, King Edward II was murdered." Next to this room is a well, the entrance to a deep dungeon, a refuse pit into which the carcasses of animals and even men were thrown and left to rot. As they did so, the stench of putrefying flesh would fill the cell, creating a hideous prison for whatever poor wretch was in there. How on earth did a king come to find himself in such a place? Well, Edward II wasn't a popular or successful leader. He's often described as weak and incompetent, and the honours he bestowed on his favourite, Piers Gaveston, alienated his barons. In 1327, Edward was deposed by his wife Queen Isabella and her ally Roger Mortimer, and imprisoned at Berkeley Castle in the custody of Thomas de Berkeley, his brother-in-law John Maltravers, and their associate Thomas Gurney. According to the Chronicle of Geoffrey le Baker, written around 1350, then began the final persecution of Edward, which continued until his death. First, they shut him in the closest of chambers, and for many days they tortured him almost to suffocation by the stench of corpses placed in a cellar underneath his chamber. But those tyrants saw that the stench could not itself cause the death of a very strong man. They suddenly seized him as he lay on his bed, and smothered and suffocated him with great, heavy mattresses in weight more than that of 15 strong men. Then, with a plumber's soldering iron made red hot and thrust through the tube leading to the secret parts of his bowels, they burnt out his inner parts and then his breath of life. His dying screams were heard not just within the castle, but through the town, waking residents and moving them to pray for the king's soul. So awful were the cries. It is perhaps no surprise at all that some say these shrieks can still be heard today, particularly on the anniversary of his murder, a hideous testament to the brutality of men, echoing through the ages. In the 17th century, John Smith of Nibley, a trusted steward of Berkeley Castle, wrote the Berkeley Manuscripts, a record of the lives of the family, castle and manor from 1066 to 1618. Within this, As well as confirming that King Edward II was murdered at Berkeley Castle, rumours abound that the king had somehow escaped imprisonment and fled. He recounts the tale of the discovery of a toad of mammoth proportions at the bottom of the cesspit used in the torture of the murdered king. According to legend, this creature was drawn up from the depths of the well during the reign of Henry VII and was easily 16 inches wide. That's 40 centimetres, about the width of my laptop screen. John Smith records that this toad had doubtless lived there hundreds of years, was fed on flesh and garbage, and that he had seen a life-size drawing of it on the doors of the castle's Great Hall. By 1846, there was an animal skin on display in the castle which was claimed to have belonged to the fell beast whose abode was in the oubliette of Berkeley, though it's now acknowledged that this was just a seal skin, not the hide of a monstrous toad. Whether related to this tale or not, there's a carving of a toad in the morning room of the castle, and another carved into a corbel in the Church of St Mary's, Berkeley, just a short distance away. According to various sources, these carvings represent the poisonous effects of gossip, though Westwood and Simpson, in their book The Law of the Land, have an interesting suggestion, and I quote, "Since toads are, traditionally, one of the most common creatures kept by witches as familiars, perhaps the Witch of Berkeley was not entirely forgotten, after all." Yes, Berkeley and its church are also famous for a terrifying paranormal event that, according to William of Malmesbury, took place in 1063, long before the murder of Edward II. This is the tale of the Berkeley Witch, a woman who sold her soul to the devil in exchange for a comfortable life of wealth and good fortune. One day, her jackdaw, a favourite familiar of hers, cried out suddenly, and the witch foresaw great sorrow, followed by her own death. Sure enough, that afternoon a messenger arrived with news of the death of one of her sons and his whole family. Afraid of what might now happen to her, she confessed her sins to her most pious children, a monk and a nun, saying, "I have been the sink of every vice, the teacher of every allurement, and although you cannot revoke the sentence already passed upon my soul, yet you may perhaps rescue my body by these means. Sew up my corpse in the skin of a stag, lay it in a stone coffin, fasten down the lid with lead and iron, and on this lay a stone bound with 3 iron chains of enormous weight. If I lie thus secure for 3 nights, on the 4th day bury me in the ground, though I fear the earth may refuse to receive and cherish me." The woman died, and her children followed her instructions, laying the coffin in the church and praying for their mother's soul. During the first 2 nights, hordes of terrifying demons breached the church doors and tore the first 2 chains from the coffin. On the 3rd night, a towering devil, much more fearsome than the rest, crashed through the gates and into the church with horrifying force. He called the witch by name and commanded her to rise, snapping the final chain from the coffin like it was mere thread. Shattering the lid, he seized the hand of the living corpse, dragging her from the church. At the door appeared a huge black horse, its back bristling with iron hooks, onto which the devil flung the body of the witch. The horse leapt into the air and all 3 vanished. But it is said that the witch's pitiable cries and screams, just like those of the king over 250 years later, were heard for miles around. Standing in the lush castle grounds on a sunny spring day, it was easy to be enchanted by the beauty surrounding me. Yet beneath the surface lies a history that is as haunting as it is rich. Berkeley, with its storied castle and ancient church, bears witness to over 1,000 years of human triumphs and tragedies. It's difficult to reconcile the idyllic scenery with the chilling tales of the devil's grasp on a woman's soul, or the brutal murder of a king within these very walls. But in a place where history runs as deep as the roots of the surrounding trees, perhaps it's not so surprising to discover these shadowy corners, these bleak reminders of the darker chapters of human existence, these echoes and spectres of tragedies from long ago.